Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I'm Tom Gross, and we're sitting right here in the dungeon with Dan Ream. Hello, Dan.
Hi there.
And we are ready for another week of shows. And well, I guess it's just one. I put a plural on there with an S. We do one show a week. Unless you joined us a couple weeks ago, the GenCon follow-up, we did do two there as well. But yeah, we were just talking about some things about the show here, and you mentioned to me that our YouTube channel is starting to roll.
Yes.
And we have got some of our shows that we do here in podcast form will show up on YouTube with images.
I finally dipped my toe in with video editing software. So right now it is just, for the most part, just an image of the Teachers in the Dungeon side. But I did throw up our interview with Alan Morris and was able to actually match the images as we discussed them. So that might be one worth going back and watching, even if you've listened to it, just so you can actually see the images that we talked about.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful for a lot of those that are visual that we do talks about. I'm even thinking about the one where we built our dungeons.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to have pictures of that while we're talking about it, to make it worth another listen, or for our new listeners who discover us on YouTube to have that aspect. So we'll get those links for YouTube out in social media pretty soon. But anyway,
it is just Teachers in the Dungeon. If you search that on YouTube, you should find it. So.
Okay. I came across this, speaking of social media, I came across this a couple days ago. I do not have a source for it, so I just want to, as the librarian, I want to put that out there that I don't know the source of this, but it just was an interesting, it's a statistic. It's a ranking chart from 1 to 20 of the tickets sold at GenCon for RPGs.
Oh, cool.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. So whether it is 100% accurate or not, I cannot verify that. But I don't think it's probably too far off. I'm not going to go over all of these. I thought I might give you the top 5.
Yeah.
And then maybe give you a smattering. So 20 to 5.
20 different RPGs.
20 different RPGs.
Wow.
And there's a couple here that I want to get into that are not on this list. So Dragonbane is one of them, and I think it's probably because it was played in one room with like 6 tables, and so not as many tickets were sold for some of those. I don't know if that's why or not, but I could never get into Dragonbane. So anyway, some in the top the 5 to 15 that you might be aware of are Root the RPG, which I think that's a pretty recent one that came out. Star Wars the role-playing game. Candela Obscura.
Candela Obscura, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
That's the new one from. This is horrible, folks. My brain's not functioning today.
Well, I threw this at you.
Critical Role.
Oh, okay.
Critical Role. That's their new created game.
Oh, awesome. But you got Cyberpunk, another just general Star Wars, which is probably more the modern Fantasy Flight, is my guess. But so top 5. Number 5 is Call of Cthulhu with 900. Sorry, I lost my place. It's a teeny tiny little chart. 947 tickets sold to play Call of Cthulhu. Then up above that is number 4 is Tales of the Valiant at 992.
That's Kobold Press, I believe.
I think you're right. Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Number 3 is. Now, I'm not surprised this is number 3. I'm surprised the ticket sales are not as high. And number 3 is Dungeon Crawl Classics, 1,184 tickets. Again, some of these might be just limitations of tables. Could be. But when we get a little bit higher here, which isn't too far, we have 2 and 1, I don't know that statistic lands. I don't know. Let's see. So number 2, Pathfinder. Pathfinder sold 2,486 tickets. So then number 1, I'm sure you could probably guess, is Dungeons and Dragons. Now this is the shocking piece to this, which is why I wanted to bring it up. So keep in mind, Pathfinder is number 2 at 2,486. Dungeons and Dragons is first with 10,011 tickets sold.
Actually, that tracks.
Tell me about that.
I forget if we talked about this on air or not. I saw statistics that even after all of... Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I think it is this year, but also over the entire run of print copies of role-playing games from 5e on. Even with the OGL debacle and everything, Pathfinder is only at about 10% of the sales of Dungeons and Dragons. So
Evidenced here. I mean, this is about 20% of, but still, yeah.
So it is. It's interesting just how massive. Well, you think about it. You probably don't find Pathfinder and Dungeon Crawl Classics unless you've already found D&D. I think.
Correct.
If you're just a casual. If your person just has casual interest in, I might try a role-playing game, the only one you're going to have heard of is Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
And then only after that, gateway, do you maybe get into some of the others.
The only exceptions I can think to that would be if it's very genre specific.
Well, that's true.
Like like Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
If you love horror but you've never played Dungeons and Dragons, you might have discovered.
Yeah. Or the Star Wars games. Obviously.
Or the Star Wars games could be in there too. But yes, I totally agree. When it comes to RPGs, Dungeons and Dragons is the gateway for probably most people. So I don't know. I found it the spread to be kind of surprising to me.
It's
because of the
notable.
OGL and sort of the criticism, and that weekend is the weekend that it was discovered that one of the D&D artists had used AI to create an image or images and big B's and I mean I have to say, regardless of where we stand on that, using AI or not AI, I thought that D&D responded very quickly. Yeah. Now I saw it drop one day and I saw the D&D Beyond response the next day, basically saying we will rewrite our policies that this is not appropriate. I think they're kind of under the impression that they figured it would not be appropriate, but
I feel like their response was a good one in the sense that I feel like the outrage or whatever fizzled out pretty quickly.
Yes.
I think, they were able to address it in a, maybe they learned a little bit of a lesson with the OGL that got in front of this a little more quickly.
Right. And I really need to study this trend of AI a little bit more to understand how that works and how that impacts art.
I'm using it for tokens for online D&D games.
Okay.
Because, for one thing, particularly if it's an NPC, who cares what it looks like, really? And also, I know that there's no copyright infringement if I'm taking an image and slapping it into Roll20.
Right.
No, I, in quotes, created it myself, so I get to use it.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll have to have that conversation somewhere down the road. It sounds like a good one. But today's topic, you developed this topic, and I thought it was a fun topic, so I'm going to let you introduce it and we'll get rolling.
I am taking, not credit, but blame for this one, folks. I thought it would be fun to try this from a little different direction, so this was my idea, not Tom's. If this becomes too snarky, blame me. Tom is a gentle soul. He would never on his own come up with this. So the topic for today is how to ruin your DM's day.
Yep.
So we're going to go through, we're going to give you advice if you feel like just destroying your DM. So obviously all of you are nuanced and sophisticated thinkers enough to realize this is just a different way of listing how to treat your DM nice. So
and I will say I don't think there are too many players that would want to do that to their DM. But so this is more of like an awareness piece because maybe I'm guilty of some of the ones that I've written. I'm totally guilty for a lot of these.
I am the talk about when you point your finger at somebody, you got three more pointing back at you.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of these I came up from my personal experience of me doing these, knowing that in hindsight, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that or something like that. But I did one time have a DM. He just was so difficult that I would have wanted to do all these things. And it wasn't you. This goes back to the early 90s. I think we were still on second edition playing that. And he was the type of DM that, well, how much weight are you carrying? Do you have rations to go out on this? How many, we've been 6 days he said one time, we've been 6 days at travel. Does everybody have 6 days of rations? I was like, dude, I don't think I have anything on my, okay, you're starving now. Like he was, And that's his style of play. And I came to learn that. But I became so frustrated with him. We spent a 4-hour session just getting down a hallway in a dungeon. Is how particular he was on every little thing. And so I would have wanted to do some of these things just to make him as frustrated as I was.
Quick anecdote: as I'm leading a session tonight with people I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
And some I do, some I don't. And one of the questions that came from the newly introduced person caught me so off guard. I forget what the question was, but they continued on and said, I don't want to be punished for decisions. And I was like, whoa, when was it I'm not punishing anybody in these games. These are dice rolls. This is not, and I realized you do hear horror stories of DMs who take things personally if you don't go the right direction or whatever,
right.
and punish players. So yeah, I can see.
So our topic of how to ruin your DM's day is intended for anybody who DMs. Thank you, because we can't have this game if we don't have someone's willing to lead it. So we're gonna have a little fun with it, but it's also really just, hey, pay attention that you're not doing these things. So how do you ruin your DM's day?
First thing, if you want to ruin your DM's day, is do not, under any circumstances, bring any food ever to a game session. Just don't do it. Make sure you make everybody else bring the food. You just expect them to do it, and make sure you try some of all of theirs. Never bring any of your own.
I'm raising my hand because sometimes I'm that guy. And let me tell you, as the player who either forgot about it or just shows up and I'm like, oh, I didn't run to the store before I came here. The guilt is heavy. And I sit there and I'm like, I just won't eat anything. But the food looks so good. I can't help it. Yes, be a gracious guest. And I'm sorry, we're ruining.
Yeah,
so
we're ruining.
Don't bring food.
Well, this could be a whole other topic. I've noticed with some of my friends from Taekwondo that I play with, they took the food very seriously when we started and brought lavish, but like 10 times as much as we could eat. And that sort of tends to suppress. So over time, I've seen the food creativity decline. Right. But in a way that's okay, because I also feel bad if someone brings something wonderful, but you can't really try it because you're so full of everything else. So anyway, what do you got?
Well, I think if I'm going to ruin my DM's life, I'm going to metagame. I'm going to metagame like crazy. I'm going to, if I see the map before it gets covered up, or if my DM doesn't cover up the map, assuming that we just are going to pretend like we don't see it, I'm metagaming. I'm like, we should definitely go left here. Definitely should. Here, this is actually, two of these are together, so I'll just go with it. Speaking of metagaming, is when we start fighting a monster, I'm getting my monster manual out and I'm looking at the stat blocks.
Oh yeah, that's a must.
And that is definitely a good way to ruin your DM's day.
Especially because then you can say, no, a 15 definitely hits.
Right. Exactly. Wait, I just did 30 hit points. It says right here there's only 28.
Yeah.
So metagame.
Perfect.
Let me see if I had anything else on here. Yeah, I definitely think, and sometimes when you have conversation with the DM out of game and they give you a little tip or a clue, definitely bring that to the table.
Oh yeah, tell everybody.
Yes, tell everybody. So metagame.
And woo! And yes, connected to that is when your character isn't there, you should definitely take part of the conversations anyway.
That one is okay. Stepping out a little, that is hard to do sometimes. But yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Give your input to the two that are in the room and you're standing outside.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. That's okay. These go kind of quick, but they're very cut and dried. My second one is also very quick, just to the point. Always arrive late. Never be on time. And actually don't tell him either, or her. Don't tell the DM that you're going to be late.
Right.
Just know that they run on your time.
Yes. and be sure to miss the recap at the very beginning.
Yes.
So if you're going to be late enough that you're going to miss the recap.
Yes.
That you'll have to ask several questions then later on about what's going on.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly right in the middle of combat.
Right. Ooh, okay, so that leads to my
Okay.
my next one, how to ruin your DM's day. This one actually ruins everybody's day. But especially the DM. Because DMs they have a sense of time and how long things are taking, and they know where the road goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one is a great way to ruin the day. And that is, when you're in combat, don't plan ahead. Wait until it's your turn initiative to stop and plan out what you're going to do.
Especially if you're a caster.
Say,
Sorry,
when you open up the book and check the spells that you've got and see what and don't pay attention. Part of this is also, don't pay attention to what's going on the battlefield because you're looking at books.
Yeah.
Because my favorite things that ruins it for the DM is when you say, well, if I did this spell, who would that hit?
Yeah.
When you probably could have been paying attention and watching
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. Not to say that you can't ask questions at a game. Of course you can.
Yes.
But it's when it comes to you and you have no plan in mind.
I was going to say, as an aside,
Mm-hmm.
as a DM, I don't mind, and I actually appreciate if someone says, okay, here's what I want,
Yes.
but can this happen?
But that has a plan.
Yes.
It's when it comes to you, you're like, okay, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Out comes the book, out comes the character sheet.
Yep.
And like, so now we sit there for 5-10 minutes figuring out what's going to happen. That might be an exaggeration on time, but still. Yeah, don't be planned for your move of initiative. Again, here's another exception. Something big just happened on the battlefield that changes the landscape. Totally understand. You have to revamp your plan. But usually as the DM, I know when someone had a plan and they have to change it because they'll tell you what the plan was.
Yes.
They'll say, well, man, I can't believe that just happened. I was going to do this. Okay, they had a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, gosh, as we talk, it's more and more. We need an honorable mention here before we get to the first one. My top. Okay. So, don't bring food. Don't be on time. This is kind of related to what you just said. My number 3 is, do not, under any circumstances, review your character sheet or your notes before you come back to play.
Yeah.
Don't.
That would be a big waste of time.
Make every effort to forget the entire plot. All the NPCs, all the clues, everything.
Yes.
That is a perfect way to just ruin everything for the DM.
I am guilty of that sometimes.
Oh my gosh, this is me. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I think about sometimes, let me just say, thank goodness for Chris Metz.
And Mark.
Because they
take notes.
They take notes. They have looked at those before they came.
Yes.
In fact, I think that's kind of my crutch. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't have time to look at this, or I decide I'm not going to look at it because they'll have it.
That's the problem with our current campaign is Mark is playing a very he's got low intelligence character, so he's like, I'm not taking notes, or if he is, he's not going to share them with us.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah, but
that's I'm the intelligent one in that party, my character, and I'm like, dang it, I get so wrapped up in what's happening, I don't write down anything.
Right. And this isn't so much. I don't think your statement of how to ruin it for the DM necessarily is about, don't take notes ever. It's more just don't think about the game before you show up.
Yeah.
Don't think about your character. Don't think about what they do, what they believe. Just sit down and okay. Now what's my character's name again?
Yeah. Where are we?
I'm with you.
I've
got some game club kids that I think don't think about their characters except for when they sit down. And they're novice characters, so I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying that's something to teach our kids, when they sit down to play. Now,
yeah, you say that and I realize, I really should be emailing my kids regularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe the first couple sessions say, okay guys, this is something you should do before you come to the table, but let's, for practice sake, let's review our characters. Share something about your character that you like that they did last time, or something you gained last time. Usually when we level up, I'll have even at our table, I'll say, what's something you got from leveling up to 3rd level that you want to share with the group?
Yeah.
That's a good way to review.
Yeah.
Unless you want to ruin your DM's day, then don't think about that at all.
Right.
Okay. Let me see. Did you rank? I didn't rank mine. I'm just kind of tossing them out.
I kind of did.
Okay.
That's
Well,
right.
so to ruin your day, I don't have any rankings. This one, we've kind of already talked about this, but there's a slight angle to this. Be sure to make adjustments to your character mid-game after reading the book about your character and realizing you didn't do something right.
Or maybe even after you see something that somebody else's character can do that you didn't know.
Yes. Make that adjustment to your character mid-game.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good way to ruin things.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you believe it or not, or whether you think about it or not, your DM knows pretty much what the characters can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
I may not know everything, like a command spell that was used against one of my creatures that I was not counting on. But generally, the DM has a pretty good idea of the capacity of everybody. And if you make an adjustment, you're like reading the player's handbook when you should be listening at the table, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize my character can do that, and you change it mid-game. Now, in between, you end the game, or even at a break, you say, hey, I didn't realize my character could do this. That helps to make your DM's day.
Yeah.
At least make them not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to ruin it for them, make those changes to your character mid-game.
Definitely. A lot of these overlap. So my second most powerful spell against the DM's day is to second guess her decisions and rules.
Yes.
Definitely should. That kind of comes back to looking at the monster manual, but definitely, and particularly if it's a tense moment or definitely publicly in front of all the other players, question their understanding of the game. I think that's a really good way to ruin their day.
Yeah, agreed. And so building off of that, I wrote down, be sure to be a rules Nazi as a player. Group questions are great. When we're like, okay, you guys, should this be able to wrap around the corner? What's everybody think? That's the invite to let's look at the rules, let's see how it works and all that kind of thing. But to nitpick every little thing and say, well, that wouldn't have caught on fire because that's magical fire and that doesn't, have physical effects, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes the rules destroy the narrative.
Yeah.
And so sometimes your DM might fudge the rules a little bit to make a better story. And you got to be willing to do that unless you want to ruin their day and pull the rule book out on every little thing.
And I feel like that's where I think good players understand it shouldn't be a rule book, it's a guidebook. Any given situation, any given rule, the DM has the right to bend.
Yes.
If they're a good DM, you're going to trust them, and they're going to do it because of the situation, because it'll make the story better, whatever. Right. But yes, if your goal is to just make life miserable for them, you step in and say, that doesn't work like that. That's not what the rule says.
Play it by the book.
Yeah. So before I get to my very most effective way to ruin your DM's day, you got two?
I have two left.
Well, you do one, and then I'm going to give some honorable mentions that I thought of.
Okay. If you want to ruin your DM's day, be sure to keep up on your social media and check scores that are going on in the evening.
Yes, and tell everybody about it.
That's bonus points. Bonus points is check your social media and scores going on, and then if you really want to ruin your DM's life, announce it at the table.
Yes.
Announce it at the table. Oh, so-and-so just hit blah, 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 and they are now leading.
Yes.
That can really... What that does is not only is it keeping you from the game, but then it also interrupts the narrative of the story when you have that interruption.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about phones, in my opinion. This is just this is a modern... We didn't have to deal with this back in the day. There was nothing... There's nothing pulling us from our game except our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Or bedtime or something like that. My feeling on at least at Game Club, no phones out.
Yeah.
No phones out, no music playing unless the DM's playing it, and that's that. We're adults sitting at the table, so I get it. We have to check the phone to see if our wife or someone in the family needs something, and we take care of it right then and there.
Yeah.
The other acceptable, in my opinion, acceptable use of the phone is you get D&D Plus or D&D Beyond.
Right.
D&D Plus, where'd that come from?
Disney Plus.
You have D&D Beyond, okay? Or you've taken pictures of the table for posting, about your game or just to keep it for yourself. Those types of things, okay, I'm fine with that. But to sit there and scroll your social media or to be constantly updating on something that's going on in the world, it doesn't even have to be sports. Maybe some big news came out that a famous actor died, or there's some sort of a political event or hurricane or something like that. You're at the game table.
That's a low-key humiliation of the DM, because all of this is, collective sort of fantasy world building and all of that, and by not participating or actively working against it, it sends a strong message that you didn't do a good job.
Right.
You feel foolish. It's that's the thing. I think that's what's hard about acting is it's so risky up there that you're pretending, and if someone says, "What are you doing?" It just knocks the foundation right out from under you. But you talk about phones. I am ashamed of myself because I had mine out our last session because a bunch of stuff was coming in about this new session that I had to start. I'm like, oh, this is time sensitive.
Right.
But I was doing it thinking, this is bad. Get this put away.
So my mindset as a DM anymore, unless it's game club, okay, my mindset in our games or anywhere else I play is basically we're all adults here, and I'm going to assume that whatever you're doing is either super important or you're doing something for the game.
Yeah.
And I just have to put that into the forefront of my thinking instead of the back, to try to avoid that feeling of like my game is not keeping people engaged.
Yes.
A good place for that, if I'm the player and I don't want to ruin my DM's night, a good place, when you take breaks, sure. Bring up those side conversations, check the score, check the event that's going on, check it for any text from family. Even you could talk about it there to get it off your chest, but then when you sit down at the table, cut that.
Yeah.
There are also instances if you split the party.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, as the DM, I'm like, I do kind of want you to go away.
Right.
So that you don't metagame. I'm not going to tell anyone at the table that, or sometimes you're like, come over here, or with me, the rest of you sit over. If you're on the phone and when you're not part of the immediate action and don't need to be or don't have to be part of the narrative, that's fine too. I don't mind that. I was thinking about in Waterdeep, we had split, and a couple of players were on their phones, and I'm like, I kind of made the note, and I'm like, oh, they're not part of this right now.
Yeah.
Do what you want. That's even better.
Yeah.
And because then it encourages the role play when the characters do come back together. I might have made a note as DM that, they were doing something else. Do your characters want to tell those characters what happened?
Yeah.
Now, if it's Chris Metz, he'll say, nope.
Yeah. Yep. Keep it secret.
That's my number 2, I suppose.
Okay. My honorable mention is to take every possible opportunity to interrupt the narrative that the DM is creating to scream, I have dark vision! It's a meme. So I can't even claim credit for inventing that one, but yes, that was...
I saw that.
And so my phones was actually my honorable mention too, but we already got that one. So my top piece of advice, if you want to wreck things for your DM, like you want to wound, don't show any appreciation.
That was one of my honorable mentions.
And I've got a bunch sort of intertwined here. Don't ever be aware of the time that they invested to get this ready for you. Don't ever interact in a delighted way with any characters they create. And don't ever mention anything that you admire about their world building. That's a real good way to just flatten them.
Yeah, and I do think that sometimes it's, probably most of the time, it's unintended.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't think about it.
And not, yes, and that's, I guess that's the whole...
But there are times when I've been at tables, and this is, again, goes back to childhood and college, the early professional world, before I ever met any of you, where people got mad at the DM for the way something happened, that they just didn't like the way it happened. They didn't like the way it went down, and it was beyond the way of dice. I can't believe you did that to us. Well, on the DM side, they're thinking, well, you made that decision to go that way, and so but so I have seen it where it has been intentional to, I'm going to punish my DM by being a jerk.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that intentionally, that's a great way to do it.
I've experienced, again, people just not realizing that they'll, you particularly a homebrew world, you kind of put yourself out there with it, and have people sort of smirk or joke about names. They don't know they're doing it. It's not, but it hits.
It does.
I made that up. I thought through that. And I can try to explain, and then that just makes it worse. So I just have to take it. So yes, that is a very, very effective way. And yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of frame that in a way that it's not even fun to. We can't even joke about it the way we joked about some of the others.
Yeah, right.
It gets a little too close to home.
No, it does. And again, just kind of like what I started the whole thing with by saying thank you to anybody who has put their neck out there, and that makes it sound like it's a really threatening thing. Thanks to anybody who has invested in the game so much that they're willing to say, for the sake of playing, I'll DM.
Yes.
Because it is a time investment.
Yeah.
It is like acting, putting yourself out there, especially if you're doing things like voices.
Yeah.
Or you and Chris are excellent about this, like bringing something to the table. Like Chris brought those snacks that were game, and you brought the drinks the one time, and you hung a Halloween decoration for the to kind of set the tone. Some people could walk in and be like, "What is that?" Like, why do you have Halloween decorations like that inside?
Yeah.
And while it probably wasn't intended, it still kind of wounds.
Yeah.
And so thanks to all the people that are willing to do that for the sake of the game or for the fun of the game. But as a player, if you want to ruin your DM's life, or their night, by all means.
Yes.
Do
So
not
again,
show
to flip it, to flip it, obviously, and again, I'm preaching to myself here as much as anything else. Shoot a quick text after every session.
Yeah.
Tell them what you liked. It does matter.
I usually try to do that, but sometimes when we end at midnight,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little tough. But yeah, absolutely.
And with groups, obviously, it's like a friendship. Groups you've been playing with for years. People know. You don't. You should still remind them every once in a while. But I think particularly in new groups, it's important. New DMs.
Absolutely. So my number one, was that your number one?
Yes.
Okay. So my number one is really, it's more of a pet peeve than necessarily a way to ruin your DM's night. Although it could potentially ruin a DM's night, and that is, be sure to stack your dice, let them fall over. Be sure to just roll your dice and play with them when you're not engaged. Be sure to do anything and everything that you possibly can to make noise with your dice. And that will definitely make your DM's night.
Particularly right at a very, very important climactic description.
Yes.
Yes.
Be sure to roll those all over the place. And again, more pet peeve on my end than probably anything else. And so this is what I'm going to say about that is, I can speak to this because I'm clinical. I have attention deficit, and I am the person who probably would sit there and play. So I make it intentional that if I'm going to play with dice or I feel like I need to, I bring it on the table and I just roll one in my hand. But another good thing is I got this from Stevens Woodworks. Look up Stevens Woodworks on social media. He's a woodworking person. He makes all sorts of really cool Dungeons and Dragons things. I got you guys the coaster bottle opener thing that are engraved. But Stevens Woodworks sent, when I did that order, he threw in a little freebie, and it's a little wooden fidget, and it's got a little gear. It has gears on it, and you may not know this, but that is usually in my lap, and I'm messing with it because of who I am.
Yeah.
But the dice on the table, because of who I am, I cannot like let it pass. Like I am paying attention to that because of my attention deficit. It draws me to that, and I'm like, oh, the dice. Aren't there dice?
I'm like that. Yeah. They're, for any self-respecting D&D player, you've got to have a dice addiction of some sort.
Right.
So yes,
Right.
obviously you want to mess with them. So
Yep. Hold on to those dice, friends. Unless you want to ruin your DM's day, then play with them and throw them all over. The best is when there's a map with figures on it, throw them right out on the map.
Yes.
Nothing ruins a DM's day better than dice ruining the tabletop. This has been fun.
All right. So
has
yes,
been
so you got introduced to the chaotic evil versions of Tom and Dan.
That is the theme of our current game.
Yes.
So chaos.
So we will be back next week with our, I don't know if we're lawful good.
Lawful good, yeah, it's probably
We
at
might be
least neutral good to neutral chaos. No, there's good in there. There's good in there. So, but yeah, we'll be back to that for sure. If you've got some things that you have done or that has been done to you to absolutely ruin your DM's life, or they ruined your DM's life, let us know what that is.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's narrative to it, so send us a Gmail, teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com, or just toss them out on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Let us know how you ruin your DM's night. So until next time, turn your dice to 20 when you're making that roll. See you later, folks.